Tantor Audio presents The Magic Engineer by L.E. Modesitt, Jr. Narrated by Kirby Heyborne. Part 1. Seeker. Chapter 1. The boy looks at the iron, cherry red in the tongs. The wiry man, small and compact unlike the traditional smith, holds the tongs higher as he glances toward the boy. "That's hot enough to bind storms and wizards, boy. Strong enough to hold giants, just like Nyland bound the demons of light for Ryba." Sweat pours from his forehead despite the breezes channeled through the smithy by the very nature of the building. Iron runs through the center of Recluce. That's what makes Recluce a refuge of order." "That story about Nyland isn't true. The demons of light were gone by then," states the child in a clear but low voice. His narrow, solemn face remains unsmiling. "And there aren't any giants." "So there aren't," agrees the smith. "If and there were, though, iron's a stuff to hold 'em." He returns to his work. "And black iron, that'll hold the worst of the white wizards. Been true since the time of Nyland." "The strongest of the white wizards? They weren't as strong as the founder." "No," says the smith. "But that was back then. They're breeding new demons in Fairhaven these days. You wait and see." He lifts the hammer. "Then the Black Brothers'll need black steel, even if I need an order master to help me forge it." Clung! Clung! The hammer falls upon the metal that the tongs have positioned on the anvil, and the ringing impacts drown out the last of his words. The solemn-faced boy, his hair redder than the cooling metal, nods, frowns. "Dorrin, I'm done. Where are you?" A girl's voice, strong and firm, perhaps even a shout outside the smithy, barely penetrates between the hammer blows rippling through the heat and faint mist of worked metal. "Good day, sir," says the redhead politely, before dashing from the smithy into the sunlight. Clung! The smith shakes his head, but his hands are sure upon the hammer and the metal. Chapter 2. The red-headed youth leafs through the pages of the heavy book, his eyes flicking from line to line, from page to page, oblivious to the scrutiny from beyond the archway. "What are you reading?" "Nothing." His thoughts burn at the evasion. "Just one of the natural philosophies," he adds quickly. "It wouldn't be the one on mechanical devices, would it?" asks the tall man. "Yes, father," Dorrin responds with a sigh, waiting for the lecture. Instead, his father responds with a deep breath. "Put it back on the shelf. Let's get on with your studies." As he reshelves the heavy book and turns toward the tall, thin man, Dorrin asks, "Why don't we build some of the machines in the books?" "Such as?" The tall man in black steps around his son and proceeds toward the covered porch beyond the library. Dorrin turns and follows. "What about the heated water engine?" "Heated water is steam." The black wizard shakes his head. "What would happen if chaos energy were loosed in the cold water?" The wizard sits down on the high stool with the short back. "It wouldn't work, but—" "That's enough, Dorrin. There are reasons why we don't use those machines. Some can be easily disrupted by chaos. Some actually require the constant attention of a chaos wizard, and you can understand why that's not practical here on Recluce, I trust." Dorrin nods quietly as he sits on the backless stool across from his father. He has heard the lecture before. "We work with nature, Dorrin, not against it. That is the basis of order, and the foundation of Recluce." The wizard pauses. "Now, Tell me what the winds are like off Land's End. Dorrin closes his eyes and concentrates for a time. Finally he speaks. They're light, like a cold mist seeping from the north. What about the higher winds? The ones that direct the weather? Dorrin closes his eyes again. You should have felt them all. You have to be able to feel the air, Dorrin. Feel it at all levels, not just the low, easy parts, explains the tall man in black. He looks from the sky above the eastern ocean back to the red-headed youngster. What good is feeling something if you can't do anything with it? The boy's voice is both solemn and curious. Just knowing what the air and the weather are doing is important. Despite his tall, thin build, the man's voice is resonant and authoritative. I have told you before, the farmers and the sailors need to know. Yes, sir, acknowledges the redhead. But I can't help the plants, and I cannot even call the slightest of breezes. I'm sure that will come, Dorrin. In time, and with more work. The man in black sighs softly, turning his eyes from the black stone railing to the other covered porch, where a shaded table set for 4 awaits. Think about it. I have thought about it, Father. I would rather be a smith or a woodworker. They make real things. Even a healer helps people. You can see what happens. I don't want to spend my life watching things. I want to do things and to create things. Sometimes watching things saves many lives. Remember the big storm last year? Father, the legends say that Crestland could direct the storms. Why can't... We've talked about that before, Dorrin. If we direct the storms, it will change the weather all over the world, and Recluce could become a desert once again. Even more people would die. When the Founders changed the world, thousands upon thousands died, and they almost died as well. Now, it would be worse, much worse. Even if a black as great as Crestland appeared, and that is not likely. Not with the balance. But why? I told you why. Because there are more people. Because everything relates to everything else. And because there is more order in the world today. Dorrin looks at his father's earnest face, purses his lips, and falls silent. I'm going to help your mother with dinner. Do you know where Kyle is? Down on the beach. Would you get him, please? Yes, sir. Dorrin inclines his head and stands. As he crosses the close-grown lawn, his steps are deliberate, carrying him along the knife-edged stone walk with the precision that characterizes his speech and dress. After a last look at his son, the wizard turns to wend his way through the library and toward the kitchen. Chapter 3. Until you can prove you are the man with the white sword. That's how long before you could count on being the High Wizard, Jesslek. I suppose I would have to raise mountains along the Anilarian Highlands. Is that what you're saying, Sterol? It wouldn't hurt, quips the man in white with the amulet around his neck. It could be done, you know, especially with all the increased order created over the past generations by Recluce. The sun in Jesslek's eyes bathes the room. The day you do that, I'll hand you the amulet. Sterol laughs, and the sound is colder than the wind that swirls across the winter skies above Fairhaven. I mean it. It's not a question of pure force, you know. It's a question of releasing order bounds deep within the earth. There is one condition, however. Oh? You must preserve the great road, and stand amidst your mountains as you raise them. Jesslek chuckles. Getting more cautious, I see. Merely prudent. One would not wish a high wizard who could not control the chaos he released. That was the example of Genred. Spare me that lecture. Of course, you young ones do not need the ancient tales and parables because they do not apply in a changing world. Jesselek frowns, but bows. By your leave? Of course, dear Jesselek. Do let me know when you plan to raise mountains. I certainly will. I would not wish you to miss anything. Chapter 4. Damn it, Dorrin! The smith takes the short length of metal, already bearing a blackish sheen, even while it retains a straw-brown color, and uses the tongs to set it on the brick hearth beside the anvil. The youth flushes, the red from the forge combining with the red of chagrin climbing up from his neck. I'm sorry, Hegel. Being sorry don't count a whole lot. Now I got a chunk of black-ordered steel that's useless. Don't fit nothing, and nothing but a wizard's hearth gets hot enough to melt that. Darkness, you dump so much order in things, Nylan himself couldn't have forged it. Hegel snorts. Not much call for black steel, anyway. But you don't order it until it's finished. What were you thinking of? How it would look when you were done. The smith shakes his head. Go on. Let me finish. I'll send Kadara for you when it's time. Dorrin swallows and turns, walking toward the open double doors designed to funnel the cool air through the smithy. Behind him, the smith extracts another rod of iron from the bin and lifts it toward the furnace. The redhead holds his narrow lips so tightly they almost turn white. He has persuaded his father to let him spend time with Hegel, and if Hegel will not have him... He steps through the open doors and out toward the washstones, where he pauses and splashes his face with the cool water, letting it carry away the heat of the smithy and the embarrassment. After pumping a drink from the spout, he leans toward the garden fed by the runoff from the washstones. Neatly edged in fitted gray stone, the different-colored leaves of the herbs and the few purple-flowered bryn plants have formed almost mathematically precise rectangles. Dorrin lets his senses touch the herbs, feeling the beginning of root rot in the winter spice, always a problem, according to his mother, because Recluce was far warmer than the climes of Nordla. With the practice born of training, his senses enfold the winter spice, adding the strength the bluish-green-leaved spice needs to resist the dark fungal growths. Out of habit, he checks the others, even the rosemary in the drier upper stone garden. With a shake of his head that displaces not a strand of his tight-curled and wiry red hair, he straightens. I wondered why my spices have grown so true this year. A grey-haired and stocky woman stands by the washstones. Your pardon, offers Dorrin. My gain, you mean, if you have even a fraction of the skill of your mother. She smiles. Why are you out here? Wandering thoughts, confesses the youth. I thought about the wrong thing and turned an unfinished ingot into black steel. Hegel was less than pleased. He would not be, affirms the smith's wife, but he will find some use for it, if only to demonstrate the strength of his work. Dorrin shakes his head. Kadara will not be back from the temple until later. She has afternoon classes. I know. I'm going home until Hegel needs me. The red-haired youth turns and walks down the flagged path toward the stone-paved street. Behind him, the smith's wife shakes her head for an instant, before looking at the herb garden. She smiles as she studies the plants. Dorrin's steps carry him past two of the stone-walled and split-stone shingled homes of Extina, before he turns and walks up the stone drive slightly wider than the drives of the neighboring dwellings. A set of prints in the faint dust that has settled on the short, wiry grass indicates where his mother's light steps have trod as she has inspected her own garden and trees. Chapter 5. The man in black looks up, preoccupied, almost as if he does not see the youth on the covered terrace as he walks slowly up the stone walk. Looking out beyond his father, Dorrin can see the black holding, where the council on which his father serves meets. No one has lived there in the 3 centuries since the deaths of the founders. Slightly to the left of the black holding begins the high road, which stretches to the southeastern tip of Recluce. Much of the southern part of the isle remains forested and uninhabited, except for the few craft halls and the rich Fane River plains where most of the isle's grains are grown. As his eyes flick back to the black buildings on the highest point of the cliffs, Dorrin frowns, absently wondering how true the tales are about Creslin and Megera. How could they have died at the same exact instant, just as the sun rose? Or is that just another bit of superstition he is supposed to swallow? At least his models do not rely on belief. He frowns. Or do they? "Dorrin!" calls the thin-faced man. "We need to talk. Get your brother. The kitchen is fine." "Yes, sir." He turns and walks down the rear steps from the terrace. Kyle is weeding his own private herb garden as a result of their mother's threat to withhold sweets until both youths' gardens are presentable and orderly. Dorrin smiles. The order of Dorrin's garden has never been a problem. On the other hand, Kyle, his dark-haired younger brother, prefers fishing or crabbing or just staring at the Eastern Ocean to any sort of gardening. The stocky boy is not weeding. Instead, he sits disconsolately beside a small pile of wilted weeds. "I hate gardening. Why can't I go off with Bryce like I wanted?" "I suppose," begins Dorrin, kneeling down beside Kyle and immediately removing small unwanted sprouts as he talks, "because father is a black wizard of the air and mother is a healer. If they were fisher folk, like Bryce's parents, then they wouldn't want us to be wizards or healers." "I hate gardening." Dorrin continues to weed, his hands quick and precise among the plants. As he weeds, his fingers stroke the herbs, infusing them with order. "I know. You don't like learning about the air, do you?" Dorrin shrugs. "I don't mind learning anything. I like to know about things. I want to make things, not like Hegel, but machines that do things and help people. I'll never shift the winds or control the storms. Father can only do little things with the winds. He said so himself." Dorrin shakes his head. "He only does little things because he fears the effect on the balance. What good is it to have a power you can't use? I'd rather do something useful." "Fishing is useful," Kyle observes, his eyes straight to Dorrin's hands. "You make weeding look so easy." Dorrin shakes dirt off his fingers and stands, brushing off his gray trousers before straightening up. "Father sent me after you. He has some news." "About what?" Dorrin shrugs again before he turns back toward the house. "I don't think it's good." He was walking slowly and thinking about something. "Like the time when you ruined Hegel's iron?" Dorrin flushes but does not turn to let his younger brother see the reaction. "Come on. I didn't mean that." Dorrin keeps walking. "And thanks for the help with the weeding." "That's all right." The weather wizard stands by the kitchen table that seats but 4. Both youths incline their heads slightly as they step into the room from the covered porch, where they all dine together in weather better than the raw overcast outside. Their mother is sitting in the chair by the window. "Sit down," suggests their father. They sit, one on each side of Rebecca. Sitting on the remaining chair, the tall wizard clears his throat. "Not another lecture," mumbles Kyle under his breath. "Yes, another lecture," affirms their father. "This is a lecture that you have heard and forgotten, and it's very important because a time of change is upon us." The wizard sips from the cup he has carried to the table. "Among the white wizards of Fairhaven, There is a chaos wizard whose like has not been seen for centuries. They call him Jeslik. He has even begun to raise mountains in the high plains between Galos and Kyphros. Rebecca shivers. Not even the founders. Orin takes another sip from his cup before speaking. Something is going to happen, and we have to be prepared. Chaos could crop up just about anywhere. Anywhere? That's silly, comments Kyle. You think that Recluce is immune to chaos? Snorts the tall man. You think that the order with which we live just happened? No, answers Dorrin heavily, wishing his father would get to the point. This has something to do with me, doesn't it? His mother looks out the window. Kyle looks at the tile of the floor, then at his brother. Dorrin, now is not the time for your games with machines and models. Orin draws out the words. Now, Orin, temporizes the red-haired woman. He's still young. Young he may be, but order doesn't flow right when he's around. Have you talked to Hegel? Poor man's afraid to work iron when Dorrin's nearby. I can't sense the storms when he gets worried. Krellor, never mind. And with the Fairhaven wizards talking about fleets and pressuring the Nordlands to stop trading with us, things are getting too serious to have order disrupted. The air wizard frowns, then coughs. Too serious, he repeats. What do you want me to do? Disappear? Orin shakes his head, pulls at his chin, then purses his lips. Nothing is ever that simple. Never that simple. Dorrin picks up the heavy tumbler and sips the lukewarm red berry. Kyle winks at his older brother, and Rebecca glares at her younger son. Kyle shrugs when her glance shifts to Orin. Finally, Orin looks at Dorrin. We've talked about this all before, about how you insist on making your models and thinking about machines, and I asked you to think about it. The tall wizard pauses. It's clear that you haven't taken my words seriously enough. I have thought about it, Dorrin says slowly. I would rather be a smith or a woodworker. They make real things. Even a healer helps people. You can see what happens. I don't want to spend my life watching things. I want to do things and to create things. Sometimes watching things saves many lives. Remember the big storm last year? Father, the legends say that Crestland could direct the storms. Why can't... We've talked about that before, Dorrin. If we direct the storms, it will change the world's weather, make a desert of Recluce again, and kill thousands everywhere. You're just going to have to concentrate on what you're supposed to be doing, and I can't make you. I'm sending you to study with Lortrin. Is that wise? Asks Rebecca. What else can I do? He doesn't listen to me. Father? Yes, Dorrin. The redhead takes a deep breath. I do listen to you. I can't do what you want me to do, and I don't want to. You are a great air wizard. I never will be. Can't you just let me be what I am? Dorrin, machines and chaos were what brought down the angels. Now, admittedly, you couldn't handle chaos if your life depended on it, which, thankfully, it doesn't. But this obsession with building machines is unnatural. What good will they bring? Will they make people healthier, the way healers do? Or will we tear up the earth in search of metals? Will we poison the rivers refining them? And part of the order of Recluce is supported by the core of cold iron ore that runs down the hills above the fane. Would you throw that away for machines that would run and wither away? Dorrin looks down for a moment, then turns to his father. It doesn't have to be that way. Hegel doesn't make a mess. Everything there is reused. Hegel doesn't need stones and stones worth of metals. Machines do. Orin shakes his head. Perhaps Lortrin can make you two understand. What did I do? Protests Kyle. Nothing, answers the air wizard. But... Oh, I was referring to Dorrin's friend Kadara. She thinks that strength and skill are the answer to everything. She refuses to listen to her mother, only to Hegel, because she only respects physical strength. Kadara's going to the academy too? Dorrin looks from his brother toward his father. Orin nods. I am not exactly pleased with the idea, nor is Hegel, but the Brotherhood is even less pleased about the thought of either one of you continuing essentially unsupervised, especially as friends. Lortrin should be able to teach you a thing or two. What if he can't? Asks Kyle fearfully. Both parents look at the younger son. Well, what if he can't? Demands the dark-haired boy. We'll face that later, answers the air wizard. And Lortrin is a woman. She is equally adept with a short sword and the manipulation of order. Kyle's eyes dart from his father to his older brother and back. Orin takes another sip from his tumbler. Rebecca stands. Dinner will be ready in just a moment. Kyle? She inclines her head toward the pantry. Kyle scurries for the tableware. I need to check something, the air wizard comments, setting the tumbler on the top of the pie safe before walking toward the study. Dorrin looks toward his mother, who slices scallions into a skillet. After a moment, he walks toward the porch to think before dinner. Chapter 6. There are no great weather wizards on Recluce now, not like Kreslin. A thin man in white shakes his head. Was he as great as the records say? Destroying an entire Hamorian fleet? That was before he really got going, snaps a heavier man in the first row. Check the older histories, especially about the weather. Don't play games with the youngster, croaks another voice. Just tell him. You tell him, Fiedner. It is so simple, young master wizard, croaks the dried-out wizard called Fiedner. So simple, and so complex. 3 centuries past, the council included blacks. Not many, to be sure, for the whites looked down upon the blacks. And the magic of order is more complex and less directly powerful than that of chaos. Or so everyone thought until Kreslin walked off the roof of the world. He was real? Aye, that he was. Real enough to change a white witch into an order master near as great as he. Real enough to destroy scores of ships sent against him. Real enough to turn Kyphros into the hot desert it is today, and northern Spitlar into a cold and snowy wilderness. Real enough to turn Recluce from a desert into a garden island. The young man shakes his head. Folk tales! Nonsense! Fire flares from his fingers, not just red-tinged white, but a flame like a blade that saws a chunk out of one of the granite columns bordering the chamber. Clunk. Folk tales they are. But you're here today because Kreslin lived then. Explain, demands the slim young man with the sun-like eyes and white hair. The balance is real. Aye, real. And you disregard it at your peril. Genred the traitor never believed in the balance, and we have paid and paid for that ignorance. In Kreslin's time, chaos dominated, and the balance was forced to find a focus. The blacks manipulated the focus into creating Kreslin, and they had him trained outside of Fairhaven. Westwind? That much is verifiable. It is not what is verifiable that concerns you,
Cheslick. Creslin was order-bound, but...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?